Hello everyone, I'm Brian Croy Dragon, and yeah, gonna be doing some Crusader Kings. You're fine, kitten. You're fine, Alex. Hey, relax. We'll get started in a moment. Learning scenario, yes. Hold on, can I? Huh. Okay, let's see here. Oh no, maybe not. Hello? What the hell is going on with my headphones with built-in mics? What the hell? Hello? Hold on. Ah, there we go. Learning scenario, yes. Let's do that. Behold, the world as we know it in the year of our Savior 1066. As you can tell, it is divided into distinct regions, countries, each controlled by some ruler or another. Crusader Kings 2 is a game about these rulers and their families, relations, intrigue, and power. Be a conqueror or a peaceful family follower, as you will, but know that most other characters will lust after more land, more countries. Crusader Kings 2 is a real-time game. Close this window and unpause the game using the speed widget. Unpause the game. Yeah, I don't think I like this in window mode. No, I don't think I like this at all in windowed mode. It doesn't even... What the hell? You gotta be so specific with this. Okay, let's try something else. Okay, what should we try? I'm gonna install Deponia. But of course we need to do something while that goes on. After all, it has an estimated time of 48 minutes. So, yeah, this is great, isn't it? Not really, it's kind of boring. Excuse me. Yeah, of course, application not responding for Finder. Terrific, isn't it? Oh, you son of a bitch. Oh, this is terrific. This is just I want Finder open. Come on. Yeah, I can see that Finder isn't responding. Why? It's responding now. Get out of my face, you son of a bitch. Oh good, finally, that is done. Yeah, just gonna chill. Let's see of it. Of course we need something to do while we chill. Open Microsoft Ancient Lands. Can't really, play the game, but I can read the pages. Oh well, isn't this gonna be boring? For the love of God. Again with the application not responding. What is this? Why isn't this happening today of all days? Why? Wait a minute. Cancel the installation of Deponia? Can that be the cause behind this? Oh, there we go. Finally, it was Deponia. What the hell? Doesn't make any blasted sense. Just do a chill stream. There we go. Let's make this to scale, sort of. Deep in the jungles of Mesoamerica and South America arose some of the most mysterious civilizations of the past. They built magnificent cities, developed advanced mathematics, created precise calendars, and cultivated some of the most important crops ever raised. But they never used the wheel, and some of these civilizations had a dark side too. Their magnificent temples once were scenes of human sacrifices to please their bloodthirsty warrior gods. Yeah, if it wasn't animals, it was people that was being sacrificed, but to be honest, what culture hasn't done human sacrifice at some point? Go back far enough, and it was my ancestors, the Gaels, who were doing such things. What, Alex? Temple builders. The Maya, the Aztecs, and the Inca built monuments that rival the spectacular buildings of ancient Egypt, Greece, or Rome. In fact, they even built pyramids like the Sun and Moon pyramids in the Aztec city of Teotihuacan. Let's run that again. In fact, they even built pyramids like the Sun and Moon pyramids in the Aztec city of Teotihuacan. These pyramids often had temples to the gods on top, but the Maya temple of the inscriptions in the ancient city of Palenque held a secret treasure. In the crypt deep within the pyramid was a magnificently decorated tomb that held the body of one of the Maya's greatest kings, Pakal. Both the Maya and the Aztec people. Let's try that again without skipping the title. Bloodthirst. Both the Maya and the Aztec people believed the gods needed blood to survive. They sacrificed animals like the jaguar to please the gods. Mummy makers. High in the Andes of Peru, the Inca preserved the bodies of their dead, but they didn't dry the body in salt like the Egyptians. They just put the body in hot desert sand or exposed it to the dry air of the high plains. Instead of laying the body out straight, the mummy makers of the Andes curled the body up, tied it, and then wrapped it in cloth. Mummy bundles. Mesoamerican mummies were a lot like those from the Andes. People often attached face masks to the wrappings. The masks were supposed to protect the dead person from the dangers of the afterlife. Strange. I don't feel this sick to my stomach when I'm looking at them as I do when I look at the mummy at the Warren, Ontario Museum. Granted, having it actually be there in front of you might be a thing. Come to think of it, I don't recall that ever happening until my most recent visit, which was on Saturday. The arts. Art was everywhere in Mesoamerica. Beautiful hieroglyphs decorated temples and stairways. Statues of kings and gods stood in the plazas of Mesoamerican cities, and filler mosaics were often so finely made that they looked like paintings. But no matter how beautiful an object was, it almost always had a practical function as well. These tawny fertility dolls, for example, had great religious importance and were placed in the grave when the person died. The art of death. The Aztecs and Mayas made many sacrifices to the gods. This beautiful knife was used to kill animals or even human victims to please the gods. I will admit it is beautiful. Timetable of tribes. One of the earliest Mesoamerican civilizations, the Olmec, existed for 1,000 years between 1200 and 200 BC. The Olmec built bone courts, created platform mounds, and wrote with hieroglyphs. The Mayan civilization, deeply influenced by the Olmec, began around 1000 BC and reached its height between 250 and 900 AD, but then it began to decline, and by about 1450 AD, it had nearly collapsed. The end came in the 16th century, when Spanish invaders conquered the region. Later civilizations. The Aztec civilization began with a fierce tribe of warriors who settled in the Valley of Mexico in the 14th century AD. The Incas, last of the great Native American civilizations, reached their peak during the 15th century AD. At its height, Inca territory stretched for almost 4,000 miles along the eastern coast of South America. A bloody past. Today, many archaeologists. Let's try again. Try again. Today, many Wait, what? No, I haven't even. I'm getting all ahead of myself today. Well, no, exactly today. A bloody past. Today, many archaeologists think the Maya were some of the most violent people who ever lived. They practiced human sacrifice to please the gods, and even Mayan games were brutal. Sometimes they tied up prisoners and used them like balls. In fact, some experts now believe that the entire Maya civilization may have been destroyed by constant warfare among kingdoms. Well, if that's the truth, it certainly would have left them in a severely weakened state by the arrival of the Spanish. By the time of the arrival of the Spanish. The Flowery Wars. The Aztec called blood flowers. They declared flowery wars on neighboring tribes to capture prisoners. They took the captives to the top of a temple and stretched them over a ceremonial rock. Then priests cut into their chests with a special knife and pulled out the still beating heart. Without such sacrifices, the Aztecs believed the sun would not rise each day. Yeah, can you believe it? Can you believe it? I have difficulty believing in such a thing, but apparently they did. Food. Mesoamerican people didn't have much variety in their meals, but they usually had plenty to eat. Maize was their staple food, but they also had beans and squash. Of course, each civilization had its specialties. The Maya and Aztecs grew lots of tomatoes and avocados, while the Incas raised more than 100 kinds of potatoes. Most people didn't eat a lot of meat, but on special occasions, guests at a banquet enjoyed turkey or even roast dog for dinner. Oh my god. I'm not exactly one who would make a meal out of the first friend, but apparently they were. Living traditions. Like the Maya and Aztec before. Let's try that again. Like the Maya and Aztecs before them, modern Mesoamericans still eat tortillas, and they cook with lots of hot chili peppers. I like tortillas, they taste good. People of the Pacific. About 300. Let's try it again. About 3,700 kilometers off the coast of Chile lies mysterious Easter Island. When Europeans discovered it in 1722, several thousand Polynesians lived there, but they were not the island's first inhabitants. An earlier race of people had once made their home on this isolated island. No one knows who these people were, but many experts believe they built the huge, eerie statues that line the cliffs of the island. Mysterious script. In caves on Easter Island, archaeologists have found wooden tablets inscribed with a kind of picture writing. These tablets are the only evidence of Polynesian writing, but nobody knows what they say. In fiction, it seems like the Easter Island heads are popular for the ancient astronaut theory. Gorgons had an episode called Sentinel, which featured an alien named either Mokar or Nokar. What was it? It's a chill stream and I can just look it up. There we go, Nokar. I think. Yes, sir, Nokar. I have the series on DVD, but it's not like I'm gonna go on down to check it out and just leave you all here. His head brings to mind the Easter Island statues. And because of its long lifespan, he was actually the inspiration behind them. And on the other hand, you have The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Dear me, what was an episode called? Secrets of Lamoa, I believe? Well, anyway, in that episode, the Quest team finds the bones of an alien that whose skull brings to mind the whole thing, the Easter Island heads. Oh yes, here we are. Zoned out for a moment there. The Secret of the Moai. There we go. The basic idea is that for gargoyles, the alien was on Earth to protect it from alien invaders. In Johnny Quest, the aliens were responsible for human evolution. So yeah, that's it. That's the that's their the Rainlay. That's the Easter Island heads in fiction for you. Night at the Museum excluded. Carrying on. Inside a Mayan temple. In the 1950s, archaeologists made an amazing discovery at the Temple of the Inscriptions. In the temple, at the top of the pyramid, they found a secret stairway that led into a small chamber. Deep inside the temple, the scientists found a chest holding the secrets of victims sacrificed to the gods. Nearby was an even more amazing discovery. A chamber that held the magnificently carved sarcophagus of Pakal, one of the greatest Mayan kings. Fit for a king. Jade was a precious treasure to the Maya. When scientists discovered the skeleton of Pakal, it was adorned with bracelets and rings of jade. One of his hands still clutched a ball of the precious gem. A glorious jade mask had once covered his face. Yeah, I remember, let's see, 5th grade, I believe, we watched, The Voyage of Lamimi, I believe it was called. Or the second Voyage of Lamimi, Oh, it must have been the second Voyage of Lamimi, yes, it was. The second Voyage of Lamimi was about exploring Mayan ruins in southern Mexico. The first series was about a census on humpback whales. I remember in the final episode seeing such a jade mask. Well, that's Mesoamerica. Holy mackerel, this one's a bit bigger. Okay, there we go. Ancient artists. What do you think of when you hear the word art? Museums filled with paintings and sculpture? Well, how about a pyramid or a knife? Or a statue that reminds people of an important story? In the ancient world, art was not just beautiful, it was often useful too. Daggers and helmets, forged for strength in battle, were sometimes carefully crafted and decorated with carvings, precious metals, or even jewels. Yeah, you can see the ear right here in the helmet. Wow, look at this stuff. Bitch, my ear. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine, just a little itch in the ears. Never hurt anyone. Annoyed someone, maybe, but not hurt me. Never hurt anyone. Ancient pyramids. The most famous pyramids are in Egypt, but ancient peoples also built pyramids in the desert sands of other Middle Eastern kingdoms and in the jungles of Southeast Asia and Central America. The Sumerians of Mesopotamia constructed this pyramid-like structure in their city of Uruk, called a ziggurat. It had several enormous steps or terraces, but unlike the Egyptian pyramids, the ziggurat was not a tomb. It had a temple at the top, written in stone. In a Central American jungle stands a huge step pyramid more than 1,000 years old. The Mayas made the 9 steps out of earth and then covered them with an outer shell of stone. The temple on top is like a huge book. It is covered with glyphs that tell the stories of the Mayan kings. Fascinating, isn't it? Places of worship. Some of the most magnificent... Let's try that again. Some of the most magnificent art from the ancient world wasn't made for people to enjoy. It was created to honor the gods. Now in ruins, great temples such as the complex at Karnak in Egypt, or the Temple of Artemis in Asia Minor were once decorated with bright paintings, precious gold, and intricate carvings. The awesome art was meant to inspire the people and remind them of the god's power and majesty. Sacred but simple. Not everyone worshipped at great temples. The Minoans of Crete held some of their religious ceremonies in caves or on hillsides. In Rome, some of the most important rites took place at the small altars that everyone kept in their homes. That is fascinating. If you think the art of ancient peoples is strange, just visit an art museum today. You'll see people in modern Just run that again. You'll see people in modern paintings and gold... Let's try that again. You'll see people in modern paintings and sculptures that look like beings from another world. Like modern painters and sculptors, ancient artists didn't always choose to portray people realistically. In ancient Egypt, for example, artists developed a highly stylized kind of painting and sculpture that lasted thousands of years. Click the play button to see how Egyptian artists worked. Yes, just one moment here. I'll, new Finder window, applications. There we go. Let's just see if I can figure this out. There we go, movies. Uh, let's just hope I chose the right one. No, stop. Okay. Son of a bitch. Let's try again. Less time with you all seeing the picture now. Painting people. If you think the art of ancient peoples is strange, just visit an art museum today. That's better. You'll see people in modern paintings and sculptures that look like beings from another world. Like modern painters and sculptors, ancient artists didn't always choose to portray people realistically. In ancient Egypt, for example, artists adopted a highly stylized kind of painting and sculpture that lasted thousands of years. Click the play button to see how Egyptian artists worked. Okay, let's see here. Holy mackerel, that's big. Let's try and figure this out. Whoa. There we go.
Egyptian artists followed strict rules for drawing people. See if you can draw like an Egyptian. It's easy if you follow the same steps they did. First, draw the head and neck of the person in profile or side view. Draw an eye as you would
Profile is basically the only way I can draw.
curved eyebrow. Next, draw the lips from side view. Egyptians were usually shown wearing heavy black wigs. Men wore helmet-shaped wigs. Women's wigs were usually long and straight. When you draw a wig, make sure to leave the ear showing. The person's shoulders and chest should face front, but draw the hips and legs from side view. Feet always face forward. Men in Egypt usually wore skirts with no shirt.
Count.
And women wore long dresses. When you finish outlining the figure, fill it in with bright colors. Although many Egyptian paintings were painted in dark tombs by nothing but torchlight, they were vibrant and lively.
Not sure if you've heard all that, but yeah, that's how it was. Oh jeez, I don't even know if I clicked on the right thing, but whatever. Carrying on. Oh, there we go. Son of a bitch, my ear again. It's nothing. It's just a blasted itch. Spectacular sculpture. People in ancient times didn't have cameras, so they preserved the memory of their leaders in wood, metal, and stone. Sometimes the artist showed kings as the kings wanted to look, young, strong, and handsome. But the Egyptian artist who made this statue of Thutmose III didn't try to disguise the pharaoh's big nose. The Greeks brought even more realism to their sculpture. When it was new, this statue of a dying soldier was brightly painted, perhaps to show blood flowing from his wounds. Living on in stone. The Romans admired everything about Greek art, especially its realism. This statue of the Roman leader Julius Caesar is so lifelike that you almost expect it to speak. Well, that would probably happen if you were high. Weapons as art. Fine weapons said a lot about the man who carried them. A beautifully crafted sword, a shiny helmet, or a gleaming shield showed off a man's wealth, status, and power. Even in death, ancient warriors were never without their weapons. Archaeologists found this golden helmet and dagger at the site of the ancient Sumerian city of Ur. The helmet shows the contours of a man's head, including his ears. Let's try that again. The helmet shows the contours of a man's head, including his ears and long hair rolled into a bun at the back. Celtic helmet. The Romans thought the Celts were uncivilized, but ancient Celtic weapons prove they were skilled metal workers. In fact, Celts were the first people in Europe to make iron tools and weapons. Yeah, we were. Arts and crafts. Arts and crafts. Is that really how I sound when I say that? Arts and crafts. It may seem like everything in the ancient world was made of gold, bronze, or clay. And that's because most objects made of wood or cloth rotted away long ago. But whatever they were made of, many beautiful things also had a practical function. Brightly painted clay cones created beautiful mosaics on Sumerian buildings, but they also repelled water. In Greece, even elaborately painted pottery was used every day to carry water or store food. Celtic jewelry. These beads, pins, rings, and necklaces didn't come from a wealthy family in Rome. They once belonged to the barbaric Celts, who created some of the most beautiful jewelry ever made. Cosmetic spoon. Can you guess how the ancient Egyptians used this beautiful spoon? The wings of the bird open to show a hollow bowl in which a woman could mix cosmetics. And now we're off to visit the Babylonians. Holy crap. Okay, let's see here. Perfect. The Babylonians. Have you ever heard that a black cat brings bad luck, or that the stars can predict your future? These are ancient beliefs from Babylonia, a civilization that flourished in Mesopotamia about 4,000 years ago. Babylon, the most important city in the region, was surrounded by huge walls. Its magnificent blue Ishtar Gate glittered in the desert sun. It was home to marvels like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the world, and to King Hammurabi, who issued one of the first legal codes. Wow, that's beautiful. The Great Lawgiver. Scholars once believed that the law set down in the first books of the Bible was the oldest legal code in the world. Then archaeologists discovered a stone stela more than 35,000 years old. Let's try that again. Then archaeologists discovered a stone stela more than 3,500 years old, 500 years older than the time of Moses. It is inscribed with over 300 legal decisions issued by Hammurabi, a great Babylonian king. He had ordered that his code be carved in stone and put in a public place where everyone could see it. Justice for all. Hammurabi's code even applied to animals. For example, if an animal died while under the care of a veterinarian, the vet had to pay the owner 1/4 of the animal's value. If that was the case today, well, that would be the case today now, wouldn't it? The Tower of Babel. There really was a Tower of Babel, but experts believe that it was a ziggurat built in the magnificent city of Babylon to honor the god Marduk. The ziggurat rose about 30 stories high in 7 enormous steps like terraces. Let's try that again. At the top stood a temple with golden walls, decorated with enameled bricks that glittered blue in the sun. The ziggurat, the gate of Ishtar, and the Hanging Gardens showed off the fabulous wealth of Babylon, and made it an awesome sight to travelers crossing the barren desert. On your right, what people like to think the Tower of Babel looked like. On your left, what it probably actually looked like. Twin Towers. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia were similar to the first pyramid built in Egypt for King Djoser, and to the Aztec and Mayan temples of Mesoamerica. Legend says that King Nebuchadnezzar II built the fabulous Hanging Gardens of Babylon for his Persian wife, who missed the green hills of her native land. Gardens were so precious to the Persians that their word paradise meant garden. No trace remains of the gardens today, and we have only a few clues that they might have existed. Watering the garden. Although the gardens, if they existed, disappeared long ago, archaeologists have found the happens to all of us. It happens. Although the gardens, if they existed, disappeared long ago, archaeologists have found the remains of an irrigation system in Babylon. It could have carried water to a garden built on the roof of a building. Two great eras. Hammurabi was the first great Babylonian king. He conquered the cities of southern Mesopotamia and built an empire that reached from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. But unlike Babylon, Egypt, Babylon did not have vast deserts or high mountains to protect it. In the centuries after Hammurabi, armies swept across the broad plains around Babylon, destroying crops, burning cities, and dragging people off into slavery. Babylonia didn't regain its power until Nebuchadnezzar II became king over 1100 years after Hammurabi. The last great king. Nebuchadnezzar rebuilt the temples, palaces, and fortified walls of Babylon. The entrance to the Temple of Bel, known as the Ishtar Gate, is the only surviving example of Nebuchadnezzar's many projects. Looking to the stars. The Babylonians believed that the gods communicated their intentions through signs and omens, a flock of birds, smoke, or an ominous eclipse. Astrologers studied every movement in the heavens and used... Let's try that again. Astrologers studied every moment in the heavens and used astrolabes to make precise measurements of the locations of the stars. In fact, their work eventually led to sciences such as astronomy, and some of the names they gave to stars and constellations are still used today. Fascinating. Taxmen. The Sumerians actually invented the first system of writing, not to record great events or tell religious stories, but to keep track of who had paid their taxes. Their writing, called cuneiform, didn't have letters. It used hundreds of pictographs. It took many years of careful study at a scribe school to learn them all. In fact, using cuneiform was so difficult that most kings never learned to read or write. Illiterate leaders. That's just... Goose tax. The Egyptians also paid taxes in this... In this wall painting, a scribe is counting a nobleman's geese for his tax records. Durham College must be rich in Geesland. Those blasted things will rip off your arm and suck out your soul. The Assyrian Connection. The Assyrians were the most brutal conquerors of their time, taking whatever they chose and showing no mercy to those they captured. But the Assyrians did learn from the people they conquered. New customs, literature, and science, even gods became part of Assyrian culture. But Assyrians were suspicious of new ideas, so they devoted themselves not to art and philosophy, but to inventing newer and more terrible weapons of war. The Conquerors. To capture walled cities, the Assyrians invented siege engines and catapults. To frighten the people they had defeated, the Assyrians often massacred the populations of entire cities, or tortured and mutilated survivors before making them slaves. That is cruel and unusual. There we go. Oh my god, this is a big one. There we go. Down and yeah, almost perfect. You can see a bit of my square here overlapping, but what you gonna do? Ancient battles. Across the ancient world, people spoke different languages, worshipped different gods, and ate different foods, but they all fought wars. From Thutmose III to Alexander the Great to Julius Caesar, brilliant commanders led armies that fought on land and sea. Some battled to conquer vast empires, others to defend great civilizations, and still others fought to serve their gods. Alexander the Great. That's better. Alexander the Great ruled over the largest empire the ancient world had known, and the greatest empire ever conquered by one man. In just over a decade, Alexander captured Egypt, Persia, even part of India. His troops, well trained and equipped by his father, Philip of Macedon, often defeated much larger armies. They followed Alexander to the edges of the world. Let's try that again, without skipping a word. They followed Alexander to the edges of the known world, marched long distances, and charged into enemy lines. And always Alexander was in the lead, riding tall on his famous horse, Bucephalus. A genuine story. What was Alexander like? Click the button to hear him describe his most famous victories. Okay, just gonna head on over to the audio. Let's hope this is the right one. Oh yeah, this is definitely the right one. I'd say the answer is Darius. Oh my god, I've got a headache now from doing that. Hmm. Thutmose III. Much about the life of Thutmose III remains mysterious, but one thing is certain. He was a daring general. He took great risks and often charged ahead against the advice of his generals. When he set out to take the city of Megiddo, Thutmose led his army through a narrow mountain pass, where he could have been ambushed at any time. But this risky move surprised the enemy, who fled in terror before the Egyptian chariots. A warrior pharaoh, Thutmose fought a military campaign every year for 20 years as he expanded the Egyptian empire to its largest extent. Click the play button to hear his story. Okay, here we go again. I don't think that was it. No, maybe it was. Son of a bitch, that was actually it. That was it. Hold on. Yeah, I guess that was it. Or was it? What's this?
Soldiers weren't the only people to travel to far-off lands. In fact, in ancient times, traders and craftsmen often reached foreign shores long before armies.
Audio. Oh, wait, this is from the glossary. Oh, okay. On Rand. Son of a bitch, I guess that was actually for, Thutmose. Okay, carrying on. Oh, looks like it's video time coming up. The Greek Navy. Many of the most famous battles in the ancient world were won or lost at sea. For hundreds of years, many countries fought and won battles at sea by using warships based on a Greek design. Click the play button below to see how Greek warships once ruled the Mediterranean. Give me a moment, just need a drink.
The Greeks built
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. MK. Holy mackerel. Jeez. Oh my lord. Well, isn't this a nice view? Well, on with the show.
The Greeks built some of the finest warships in the ancient world, vessels that were fast, agile, and deadly. During the Archaic period, the Greeks built ships called pentacontors. 25 oarsmen on each side powered them through the water. The Phoenicians perfected this design. They built larger ships with long, flat decks and 2 rows of oarsmen along each side. In the 6th century BC, the Greeks developed a much grander warship, the trireme. Up to 170 oarsmen powered this vessel. Seated on 3 levels, they rowed in perfect unison. Even a single man out of time could tangle the oars and cost the lives of the entire crew. Greek ships had sails for cruising at sea, but they were always dropped before going into battle. These ancient warships were much more agile when maneuvered by the power of the oars. A trireme carried soldiers along the upper deck. The captain commanded from the stern, but the trireme's secret weapon was its prow. Built into every vessel just below the waterline was a wooden ram covered with bronze. By crashing head-on into an enemy warship, a trireme could damage or even sink its opponent. Soldiers on deck fired arrows at the enemy. If necessary, they could board the ship and engage the enemy sailors in hand-to-hand combat. Triremes became so light and maneuverable that they could glide right alongside an enemy ship and snap off its oars. Then soldiers could board the disabled ship, take its crew prisoner, and strip its treasures. Of course, triremes weren't perfect. They were unstable in storms, and they had no sleeping quarters or galley. Each night, sailors headed for shore. But for many years, triremes sailed the Mediterranean Sea as the most successful warships of the ancient world.
Fascinating. A soldier's story. It may seem that all armies in the ancient world were equipped with spears, swords, and shields. But the soldiers who used those basic weapons were different in many ways. Like many soldiers in ancient times, Greek hoplites supplied their own weapons. Most were farmers or artisans who served only when a king or general called them to battle. Roman legionnaires were the world's first professional soldiers. They had standard weapons, they served for many years, and were paid regular wages. Retired soldiers often received a plot of land to farm. Traveling light. Egyptian soldiers fought for the pharaoh. Most used battle axes, knives, and spears. Some had shields or bows and arrows, but in the hot desert climate they wore no armor and depended on speed and agility to beat their enemies. Here's something that's familiar to all of us. Weapons of war. If an enemy army took refuge behind the walls of a fortified city, attackers could either give up or lay siege. At first, an army just surrounded a city and cut off its supplies, hoping to starve the people inside. But the Assyrians weren't so patient. They invented the battering ram to bash down walls. If that didn't work, they used siege engines to get troops over enemy walls. Philip of Macedon and his son Alexander the Great used catapults, the first artillery, to attack fortified cities. Sneak attack. Legend says that the Greeks used a trick to breach the defenses of Troy. They left a wooden horse outside the city walls, thinking it was tribute from the defeated Greek army. The Trojans brought the horse into their city, but that night Greek warriors hiding inside sneaked out and captured Troy. And that is how Rome got started. Yeah, Aeneas left Troy, and then Aeneas left Troy during the sack of, Troy, and, then he went off to found Rome. Masada. In 70 AD, the Roman army crushed a Jewish rebellion and destroyed Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. Destroy that again. In 70 AD, the Roman army crushed a Jewish rebellion and destroyed Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. But the Jewish will wasn't broken. A band of zealots captured a mountaintop fortress called Masada. A Roman legion besieged the fortress, but the zealots would not surrender. For 6 months they watched as the Romans built a huge earthen ramp. When the Romans were about to retake the fortress, the Jews decided to die rather than face capture. First, each man killed his own wife and children. Then, one by one, the men killed one another. That was a more barbaric time. Breaching the wall. The Romans brought the full force of the army to bear on Masada. They moved siege towers, catapults, and siege engines up a ramp and were ready to capture the fortress. Well, that's definitely it for battles. Ancient battles. What have we next? Who's up for a trip to China? Oh, wait. Yeah, just hold on a second. China! At about the time that people began to settle along the banks of the Nile and the Euphrates, another culture developed thousands of miles away, in China. The civilization that the Chinese people started along the Yellow River became a vast empire. It also turned into a center of learning that acquired great wealth and developed important inventions long before they appeared in the West. While civilizations rose and fell in Egypt, Babylon, and Rome, China endured. Today, it is the oldest living culture in the world. Yeah, it looks like we've got someone watching, so hey, how you... no, apparently not, they left. A tomb of treasures. More than 700,000 workers labored to build the enormous tomb of the first Chinese emperor Shi Huangdi and the man-made mountain that covered it. Inside the tomb, more than 7,500 life-size terracotta soldiers, horses, and war wagons guarded the emperor's body, which was buried in 210 BC. Each modern warrior had a different face and was brightly painted, and every terracotta guard held a crossbow set to fire if robbers broke into the tomb. Hiding in bed. The first emperor was always concerned about being well protected. He was so afraid of assassination plots that he slept in a different room of his 100-room palace every night. I first learned about the tomb of Shi Huangdi in the Magic Treehouse book Day of the Dragon King. Yes, sir, that's where I first learned about it. The tomb is famous, but in non-educational fiction it hasn't exactly had the best track record, if Tomb of the Dragon Emperor is any indication. Behind the wall. Over many centuries, Chinese warlords built fortified walls along China's vast northern border. but their work wasn't completed until 214 BC, when the Emperor Shi Huangti added new walls and ordered all the barriers connected into one great wall. The brutal work that followed killed thousands of peasants forced to help with the project. When the Great Wall was finished, it may have stretched more than 4,000 kilometers through remote and mountainous territory, making it one of the largest construction projects ever completed. Standing tall. Much of the Great Wall stands today, and tourists can still walk along its top for several hundred kilometers. While the empire it was built to protect collapsed soon after the first ruler died. Yeah, and that's pretty much what the Chinese Empire was. Collapse, rise again, collapse, rise again, collapse. Rinse and repeat. Might be the world's oldest civilization, but yeah, what am I saying? The empire doesn't exactly exist anymore. Hasn't existed since, what, the 30s? Yeah, pretty sure it hasn't existed since the 30s. There we go. A peaceful leader. In his own country, Confucius is known as Kung Fu Su. He lived from about 551 to 479 BC. This was a time when the central Chinese government was weak and the country was often in a state of disorder and confusion. Confucius hated the corruption he saw in government and in society. He believed that people should return to the ideals of an earlier time, follow a strict moral code, and always seek new knowledge. Leaders, he said, should set a good example, educate the people, and not use force to stay in power. Wandering teacher. King Lu and his advisors didn't like many of the ideas Confucius taught. So like many philosophers in ancient times, to avoid the authorities, Confucius traveled from place to place, teaching wherever he could. A stroke of genius. The Chinese were brilliant inventors. 600 years before a European? What the hell? 600 years before a European invented the printing press, the Chinese printed books on paper using 600 years before a European invented the printing press, the Chinese printed books on paper using wooden blocks. The world's oldest printed book, called the Diamond Sutra, was printed in China in 868 AD. About 600 AD, during the Tang Dynasty, the Chinese created a mechanical water clock and the first magnetic compass, dishing it out. Chinese craftsmen worked with porcelain, which was made from a fine clay to make exquisite pottery. Today, we still call this fine porcelain China. That's not it. There we go. healing pins. The Chinese believe that energy flows through the body along pathways. If these energy flows are interrupted, sickness results. By inserting a needle into the afflicted? No, that's not it. By inserting a needle into the affected pathway, doctors restore the energy flow and cure illness. Many people all over the world still use this treatment, called acupuncture, to treat the sick. Some doctors even use it as an anesthetic during surgery. Funny moments. Let's try that again. Funny money. How did the ancient Chinese pay for their acupuncture treatments? Perhaps with a coin like this one, made in the shape of a knife. Many ancient Chinese coins were made to look like hoes, knives, and other tools. Fascinating, but I don't think I'd be able to fit one of those in my wallet. Hold on a second. There we go. Dynasties. Many great families ruled China over the centuries. The first powerful rulers founded the Shang dynasty and ruled the northern part of China from about 1750 BC to 1050 BC. The Shang were replaced by the Zhou dynasty, which ruled for almost 800 years. When Zhou power declined, China entered a time of confusion called the Warring States period. Finally, the western state of China defeated all its neighbors, making its leader Shi Huangdi the first emperor of a unified China. The Han Empire. Han. The Han Empire. During the Han Dynasty, which followed the Qin, Confucianism became the official philosophy of China, and the government made great improvements in administration, public education, art, and technology. Well, that's it for China. Just gonna take a look at my schedule. Yeah, that's it for today, everyone. I'm Brian Croydragon, signing out. Stay shrey!